Hey guys, I'm sorry this video is so late. Sundance finished up like a good 4 weeks ago, but I guess at least most of these movies aren't out yet. I caught 15 films, and I thought I'd run through all of them really quickly and give my impressions. These are ranked worst to best, so ready? Let's go! Tesla feels like it was meant to be a History Channel special as opposed to a Sundance film, complete with still images accompanied by voiceover and weird sketches that are supposed to represent historical events. It's an odd film that definitely doesn't understand Tesla, but also thinks that talking about how it doesn't understand Tesla makes it deep somehow. This film literally congratulates itself for asking questions it thinks are deep and then does absolutely nothing to try and answer them. This film's inconsistency in tone, poor direction, and complete lack of self-awareness make it genuinely offensive to the countless other films that could have been shown at Sundance in place of this pretentious garbage fire of a movie. I commend The Weeping Woman for shining a light on the Guatemalan genocide and its atrocities, but when it comes to tying that into a modern retelling of the La Llorona legend, it's sorely lacking. With essentially no character development, ridiculously stiff acting, and a paper-thin, slowly paced plot, I really can't recommend this movie to anyone. Whirlybird was pitched as a documentary of a husband and wife news reporting team that bought a helicopter in the 90s and independently reported on news that was happening in their area. Instead, it's more of a documentary showcasing an obsessive news reporter and how he was physically and emotionally abusive to his family, friends, and coworkers, but was too good at his job for anyone to really fire him. It's boring, borderline offensive, and I recommend everyone just steer clear completely of this one. Bad Hair follows an executive in the late 80s who gets a weave that turns out to have a mind of its own. It's a horror comedy that has a lot of interesting elements, but the tone is very inconsistent throughout, and it's never really self-aware enough to bring the B-rated horror plot all the way back around to further the message it's attempting to drive home. I absolutely love parts of this movie, but it doesn't really come together in the end. The Perfect Candidate is a simple, straightforward, very okay film about a female Saudi Arabian doctor who runs for local office in an effort to try to get the road by her hospital fixed. This film doesn't do anything crazy innovative, but it is cool to see a very underrepresented perspective in film. Four Good Days is basically a 100-minute drug PSA. I'm sure there are families that this story of a mother trying to help her drug-addicted daughter get clean will speak to, but it's really just an okay movie. It doesn't do anything wrong per se, it just doesn't do anything particularly interesting either. I recommend passing on this one. Kajillionaire follows a family of low-level grifters as they commit petty theft in order to keep themselves afloat. Along the way, they pick up a girl named Melanie, who ends up forming a romantic relationship with the daughter, Old Dolio. By the end, I wasn't 100% sure what to walk away from this film with. It has some genuinely funny moments, but overall seems kind of lost in its tone and message. Save Yourselves is a cute, quirky comedy about a couple trying to reconnect by unplugging and spending a week in the woods together. Meanwhile, aliens invade. It's a little slow, particularly in the second half, but overall, it's a fun time and I would definitely recommend it if it hits a streaming service. Ironbark is a fascinating look at the English businessman who became one of the West's most valuable spies during the Cold War. Benedict Cumberbatch gives a stellar performance, and I'm a sucker for these kinds of movies. Especially if you're looking for something to watch with your parents, this is well worth a rental. Palm Springs is the latest comedy from Andy Samberg and The Lonely Island, so it's an automatic recommendation from me. Beyond that though, this film definitely tries a lot of things and sets up a lot of potential threads in the beginning of the movie that don't pay off quite as well as I would have liked in the end. By the time it's all said and done, it's a fairly traditional R-rated rom-com that is still an absolute blast and well worth checking out. The Night House is a solid psychological horror flick about a woman who is haunted by her deceased husband and the house they lived in. There are very few jump scares used throughout the film, but when they do pop up, they're almost all entirely audio-based, which I found to be really interesting. It's definitely a smaller story, with very deliberate pacing and build-up, and I think it works really well in the end. I really liked Promising Young Woman, but I so badly wanted to love it. It's a dark revenge comedy for the Me Too era, with genuinely funny and tense moments. The problem is, those two don't really blend themselves together in the end. It felt jolting at times to jump between funny and intense scenes, and I just wish they'd found a way to meld those two a little bit more smoothly. Still, It's a solid movie with a wonderful neon aesthetic that I'd recommend as a rental or streaming. Worth is the incredibly fascinating story about the man responsible for determining the monetary value of the lives lost in the 9/11 attacks. With a fantastic script and great acting from everyone in the film, it really elevates this largely straightforward story. This is for the same audience as Ironbark, so I recommend it if you're into biopics, or again, if your parents are in town. I cheated a bit with Miss Americana and watched it on Netflix from the comfort of my own home. To clarify, I am a massive fan of Taylor Swift's music, but at the same time, I came into this documentary with a fair amount of skepticism, and I was surprised by just how much it grabbed me, though I don't know if it was necessarily in the way the filmmakers intended. It's a very melancholy look at one of the biggest stars of the 21st century and all of the baggage that kind of comes with that. Where do you go when you're at the top? And when you've grown up in the spotlight your whole life, how do you grow as a person when there's no one around you to keep you grounded? If you're even remotely a pop music fan, I definitely recommend checking this one out. Finally, my favorite film that I got to catch at the festival, Spree. Spree is a dark comedy thriller about a wannabe influencer who resorts to deadly tactics in order to gain an internet following. It's funny, tense, and surprisingly accurate in its reflection and critique of influencer culture. The entire film is shown through live streams and webcams, somewhat reminiscent of the 2018 film Searching, and it succeeds in a lot of the risks it takes. Joe Keery carries the film exceptionally well, and I genuinely can't wait to rewatch this. Thank you so much for watching. I'd love to hear what Sundance film you're most looking forward to catching later this year. Let me know in the comments down below. Personally, I didn't get a chance to see Minari, so I'm really excited for it to get a theatrical release. If you liked this video, please consider giving it a thumbs up and subscribing for more just like it. I'll catch you guys later.